It's my song! Let's sing it! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Come on! It's gonna be fucking awesome! You know the words! It's gonna be fucking awesome! That's it! Sing! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Yeah!
It's gonna be freaking awesome, everyone! Because today we are counting down 50 geek culture film classics for you to watch if you haven't seen, or you to watch with your kids. These are 50 movies that I grew up with. To put in the classic category, I went back 20 years, so all of this stuff is basically before 2000. Actually, there's two on the end of the list that are like 2002s, but they're all encapsulate what I like to think of as geek culture, which tends to be worlds, fantasy worlds, science fiction worlds. I think that us geeks, we love to find a nice cozy cave that we can crawl into and imagine the deep depths of the cave. You know, Lord of the Rings is appreciated by the fandom like no other because of the great lengths that J.R.R. Tolkien went to create a mythology. All right, so we are going to get into this list of the 52 classic geek culture films that every geek must see. So I've got it broken down into some of like the biggest franchises and the years in which these things have started up, sort of like the biggest groups of films and whatnot. I'm going to start it that way. And the first one, number one on the with a bullet on the list, and if you include them together, I believe it's 8 films, and that is Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas working together in particular on the films Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, which is my favorite of the franchise, and I know a lot of people's favorites. Temple of Doom, which is apparently a prequel, which I didn't realize at the time. I just watched it recently with my girlfriend, and she loves that movie. It's one of her favorites. And I know Raiders of the Lost Ark is a favorite of many other people. That is a major geek franchise, imagining, exploring, going out into the world, and finding a glimmer of magic. You know, I think the reason why people didn't really like the 4th Indiana Jones was because the glimmer wasn't magic, it was science fiction, and it wasn't like a little hint of science fiction, it was like full dive into the science fiction. If you remember the ending of that movie, the pyramid's breaking down and you see an alien wave hi to him or something. It pulls out of the pyramid. It was really over the top. But those first 3 movies are reserved in a wonderful way. They just all have a hint of magic about them, and they're wonderful. As well as the 3 Star Wars films, and I don't think I have to sit here and talk to you a lot about the Star Wars films. I'm not the biggest fan of the Star Wars films. I honestly almost took 2 of them off the list because my kids have not really responded very well to Star Wars, and I'm nervous that they might not like the first one. And I was this close, but I decided to keep all 3 of the Star Wars films on the list because it's just, who can deny that these are 3 of the most important films in the fandom? And there's so much deeper extended universe stuff outside of the Disney Star Wars stuff that so many people loathe that people would love. Novels and comic books and everything. There's a huge fan base. You know, the big thing with all this stuff is, does it have longevity? Did it create space? Are there similar things like it? Yeah, Indiana Jones, there's Uncharted, one of the biggest games there is, and then turned into a big film. You know, adventure films, of course, yes. It created, well, there's plenty of stuff before then too, but certainly there's a lot of things trying to be Indiana Jones. There's a lot of things that have gone on to try to be as Star Wars as they could possibly be. This is a bonus one because Star Wars is on the list. We must introduce Spaceballs. And if you haven't seen Star Wars and then watch Spaceballs, oh my God, you're not understanding any of the jokes. Continuing on with Steven Spielberg himself, we've got Jaws and Jurassic Park. These 2 movies are, close in the real world, but they are crossovers, and obviously whole fandoms and mythology for Jurassic Park that they've squandered really. But that first movie creates so much magic, and really lovingly based on that book, done really well. And and Jaws, that first Jaws, it goes off the rails. But I love the Meg. I can't wait to see the sequel to that. I love giant monster movies, and you can't say that Jaws hasn't given birth to so many other wonderful, frivolous thrills. Very rarely has anything done justice to what Jaws does. But I think the Meg does. I really like the Meg. that's a recent favorite of mine. And my son Cassidy, he loves the monster movies, and I love going to see those with him because we just have the best time. So thank you to Jaws. That's an important one. And Jurassic Park, man. When you watch it, it just makes you so sad for the practical effects. The death of the practical effects in these movies is just such a tragedy, and I wish that they would go back to the way they were making them before. All right, next up, we've got Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And by the way, Jaws, the first one on the list, this is 75. So is Holy Grail. So this is 1975. This is like, there was a lot of sensational science fiction stuff back in the day. Some of these really cool, big budget, mainstream films. These, I really believe, is sort of the beginning of this creative renaissance that happens in Hollywood in a lot of ways with Spielberg and George Lucas, and people seeing that there's an interest in these stories that had generally been in comic books. A lot of what Star Wars is stuff from pulp comics. John Carter from Mars, and they have been handled really lovingly here. From the Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park. I don't know who wrote the Jaws book, but I know that's based on a book as well. All of these things are adaptations, the beginning of adaptations. And then Holy Grail and The Life of Brian represent to me, and Life of Brian, what is A79, so just a couple of years later, they represent to me the beginning of that intelligent humor. Something that is about the concepts and the ideas being twisted around in interesting ways. And Monty Python has given birth to South Park and plenty others, of absurdist comedy, premise-based comedy, even something like, I think Young Frankenstein, a premise-based comedy where you're taking something seriously, and the fact that you're taking something ridiculous seriously is what's making the laughs generate. Rick and Morty, really just like everything funny is this stuff. And I know some people go back and see the Monty Python stuff and they don't necessarily get it. I really think everybody deserves to, or I should say, the Monty Python guys, they deserve you to watch it twice. Go watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail and The Life of Brian at least twice. I tried it out on my kids a while back. I showed them Monty Python, Holy Grail, and they did not get it until the very end. There's a scene where they approach what's called the Bridge of Death, and I don't want to give anything away, but suffice to say, they started busting laughing. They finally got it after just joke after joke after joke, and they're looking at me like, what does this mean? And finally they get it. They're busting their asses laughing, and my littlest child stops me in the hallway the next day, and she's like, "Stop! Whoever approaches the Bridge of Death must answer me these questions 3, or the other side he see." Because they had made us watch it a bunch of times. So I was so proud, and you'll be happy to put it on for your kids or anybody. I really think that it's important to understand comedy and like some of these things, and if to really like get back to getting some of these things that are very simple and fun. It's worth your time. There's a lot of fun to be had in the world of Monty Python, and those two films, I think, encapsulate the intelligence that's on display here, especially to The Life of Brian, which covers a Jesus-like figure's rise to worship. And there's just so many funny scenes in it, so much witty and intelligent things being said. Really, go watch it. Okay, moving on. We're getting over to how about Superman, number 4 on my list in 1978. We had Superman, and Richard Donner's Superman. Oh, it's everything that was wrong with Man of Steel is right with Richard Donner's Superman, and he just nails the hope and the sweetness. The only problem with Richard Donner's Superman was they just never gave him anything sort of interesting to contend with. They should have did something with Brainiac. They should have done something from the comics. The film series goes really off the rails after the first one, which gets the tone right completely. And they've still not been really great about fixing that problem with Superman and giving him interesting villains to fight. You can't have him fighting human beings all the time. It just is boring. You need him fighting monsters and aliens and robots, and that's what makes the visual compelling. The visual is not compelling when Lex Luthor has Superman powers now, or Zod comes down and he's got Superman powers, or you make up another guy who's got Superman power. Everybody can't have Superman powers, then Superman's not special. So the approach that they've taken has been really rough. But this first film in Warner Brothers' attempt to capitalize on Superman with Christopher Reeves was incredible, remains incredible, and you should check it out. Richard Donner, in particular, is great. One of my favorite directors. I love Richard Donner. He's made a lot of other movies. I think, the Lethal Weapon franchise, and I think he had done Maverick, which is another one I love. The other Richard Donner movie on this list, which is later in '85, is Goonies, which I didn't know he made that movie. I'm like, I literally, as I say it out loud, I'm like, maybe that's wrong because it seems wrong, but apparently he did. Goonies is great. It really puts you in that time of like that young 80s geek kind of outcast place, and I think it's a geek classic. I think it's not necessarily actually one of my favorite movies. I always kind of had an aversion to it because I didn't like how Sean Astin was using a inhaler in the film, and I had asthma and he made me feel like I was weak, and I didn't want to be weak because I was a nerd and he was a nerd and he had asthma and I had asthma. I was like, this is too real. So I didn't like the movie, but I know that people love it, and I thought it was important to include it on this list, and I do think it holds up as a geek culture classic. Thank you, Richard Donner, for those two. Next up, we got the Muppet movie in 1979, and I'm going to go through a whole bunch of sort of Muppet movie related. We can call this the Jim Henson touch list here. Some of the greatest geek culture films of all time. The Muppet movie. This is the Jim Henson moving into a full feature of featuring the Muppet characters for the first time, and they knock it out of the park. There's a lot of great things going on here, a lot of great humor. Nobody can live and not be introduced to the Muppets. The Muppet movie is great. It's got great music in it as well. I'm very picky about music because of consistency, and consistently the Muppets have been able to produce a lot of amazing original music, and if you check out this film, you'll get exposed to some of it. Some of the sweetest moments in cinema history. Also on this list, you've got Sesame Street Presents Follow That Bird with Big Bird. It's a very moving movie. It's a kid's movie, but it's got a lot to say. Really sticks with you as a kid. And I think it holds up and is really an elevated piece of Muppet art here. I really believe the Muppets in general are very important to bring into your life. An idea of surrealism, something that you can't quite figure out the way you can figure out people and read people. There's something very egoless about a puppet that I think helps the storytelling the same way comic books help storytelling, because, Oscar the Grouch doesn't necessarily look like that grouchy guy He looks like a grouch. It's like grouchiness personified instead of a human being, who I think it's easier to kind of hate on human beings, and it's a little bit easier to accept representations of things, and the Muppets are wonderful representations of things, especially in movies like The Dark Crystal, which I think is just sort of an artistic masterpiece, even if it fails a little bit in some of the writing areas. The prequel series that was made for Netflix recently is unbelievable. It's so good, so lovingly done, so beautiful in the same way that Dark Crystal is, but even more so. I kind of recommend that even more, actually, because it's a prequel. So maybe watch that first and then watch The Dark Crystal and try to appreciate it for the time period in which it came out. Dark Crystal's releasing in 82, the year I was born. So I mean 40 years ago. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful movie. And then also beautiful and maybe just a little bit hokier or kiddier, but still worthwhile with some great music. And David Bowie is The Labyrinth, and Jennifer Connelly. Oh, she's so dreamy. I love me some Jennifer Connelly. I had a crush on her for a long time because she was in a Muppet movie, and I like. She's beautiful. Humana. Yeah, no, that movie's great, and I challenge any little boy not to fall in love with Jennifer Connelly, and any little girl not to fall in love with all of the Muppet characters, especially Ludo. Yeah, you will love The Labyrinth. All right, continuing on. 2 movies that, it's funny, I thought that both of these were Henson Creature Shop. As it turns out, there were scheduling conflicts or whatever else, and I guess creative differences about how to do it. And Frank Oz of the Muppets, he's the voice of Miss Piggy and the Puppeteer behind Fozzie and Sam the Bald Eagle and Animal and most of your favorite characters, Bert, and so many. Anyway, he made a film called The Little Shop of Horrors, featuring the music of Howard Ashman, based on Howard Ashman's, I guess, off-Broadway play. It's really funny because this movie is like an adaptation of an adaptation of an adaptation, because there's an older movie with Jack Nicholson called Little Shop of Horrors, and I guess he took that, licensed it, and made music for it as a novel idea, which I think is a pretty clever way to go about doing it. And for those of you who don't know, Howard Ashman is also the songwriter behind The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin. He died way too young. Rest in peace, Howard Ashman. As for The Little Shop of Horrors, for me, hands down, it is the single greatest musical of all time. If you ever get the opportunity to see The Little Shop of Horrors on Broadway or anywhere, go see Little Shop of Horrors. It's the best. And watch Frank Oz's, he directed it and worked with the puppeteers. The puppeteering is incredible. The puppets themselves are incredible and so lifelike. Steve Martin's incredible as the dentist. Everybody's incredible in this movie. Rick Moranis, and it just, the list goes on. There's so many little cameos, and it's wonderful. Watch the director's cut if you can. It's amazing. It's different ending, an additional song or whatever, and it's, yeah, watch the director's cut. That one's the better one. Little Shop of Horrors is the best. Actually done by the Creature Shop was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was very disappointing for people who were watching the cartoons, for us to not get Bebop and Rocksteady, who are the rhinoceros and punk rock pig with the 3D glasses on. So we were all a little bummed about that. But Casey Jones is handled so well. The Turtles are handled so well. The animatronics, again, another movie that makes you miss practical effects. These Ninja Turtles, they look awesome. They look real. They have a lot of personality. The voices were great. The way it's shot's great. The tone of it, all very cool. And Shredder, Splinter, it's just, it totally brings to life that comic book. A very early and wonderful independent comic book adaptation done correctly. All right, moving on to other films. We've got Alien and Legend, both by Ridley Scott. Beautiful films. Alien, H.R. Geiger's art, incredible. Ellen Ripley kicking ass there, played by Sigourney Weaver. One alien, similar to Jaws, it's sort of reserved, but this process, just killing this whole ship, tearing it apart. One of the early amazing science fiction horror films, done so well, so beautifully, really beautiful and cool movie artistically, as is Legend, an early fantasy film done really, really great. Tim Curry plays the darkness. He's freaking amazing. By the way, I don't have a list of names or anything, directors or I've got like a list of a couple of these things, like years and stuff, because I have trouble with that sometimes. But this is all from my memory because I love these movies that much. I'm just trying to say, the guy Robert Picardo plays a character who jumps out of the swamp and attacks Tom Cruise at some point, called Meg Mucklebones, and you'd never recognize it as Robert Picardo. That dude's incredible. Robert Picardo, for those of you who don't know, famously played the holographic generated doctor on board the Voyager, and he was one of the best parts of the Star Trek Voyager series, his ongoing and growing sentience. He's a really, really great character actor, and here he plays I don't know what you would call it, a bog witch, a green bog witch with big droopy boobies, and he's incredible. You can't even tell it's him. But yeah, legend. I mean, that movie is just beautiful. I can't say the story is necessarily the most compelling anything, but you just can't take your eyes off of it all. It's just so lovely. It looks beautiful. Anyway, moving on into the 80s here. In 81, you've got the kickoff of the Evil Dead franchise. The Evil Dead franchise is incredible, introducing Bruce Campbell to the world, and he's the gift that keeps on giving, of course. I wondered if should I not put this on the list. It's a horror film. But no, this is like a really important one for geek culture, especially because by the time you hit Army of Darkness, where we get this really elevated, high-minded, fourth wall breaking comedy and supernatural stuff and fantasy stuff, it really crosses into our territory, and I think that's why it's become such a beloved fan favorite in geek culture. You always see people cosplay as Ash or Evil Ash from Army of Darkness at conventions. So Evil Dead is dark as hell. If you're freaked out easily, it'll freak you out. And Evil Dead 2 is freaky but funny, and you're just sort of, it just all kind of leaves you. It's very kind of disturbing because it's so funny and creepy. It's still very creepy, but Army of Darkness is hysterical, really, really funny and over the top. And what an interesting journey it is to go from like so deadly serious to quirky to funny. And I think that's the magic of Sam Raimi, the director, and that series, and Bruce Campbell playing Ash and all of it. I highly recommend those three. All right. 24 and 25, John Carpenter enters the list with The Thing and Big Trouble in Little China. The Thing has a lot of sci-fi elements and suspense. The Thing's probably, I think, the best horror film of all time. I'm a big fan of Alien and Aliens and some of the other ones on this list, but The Thing, really viscerally scary and interesting and compelling. If you've never seen The Thing, ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one, and it's scary. And I generally don't like being scared. I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat, but I love that movie. And Big Trouble in Little China, what a fun one. That's another one that gets quoted on the tour buses with Mr. D. Snider and his ilk a lot. Big Trouble in Little China. It's just so quotable and quirky and fun. Kurt Russell and his talking in the third person, Jack Burton. It's just... that movie is awesome. If you have not seen that movie, see it. If you haven't seen the music video that they did with Lopan, David Lopan style. Oh my God. David Lopan style. This thing has the highest production. It looks like a follow-up to Big Trouble in Little China in a lot of ways, except it's a dance video. And this is hysterical. If you haven't seen that, go seek it out on YouTube or whatever. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, Big Trouble in Little China is a must. Number 11, The Secret of Nim in 82. Secret of Nim is an animated film, and it's basically a cool, like, kind of mystical science fiction movie about lab rats. And it is dark and beautiful. Just like beautifully animated. I can't recommend it enough. It's one of those movies that wasn't afraid to be scary, and it is scary, but it's just so powerful and so meaningful. And I think it's really movies like this, these powerful, scary movies, that shape your childhood. These films, there's others on this list as well that fit that description. They really stick with you as a kid, and something needs to. This is how we learn through all of these other vicarious experiences. At number 15, we've got Ghostbusters in 84. Yeah, Ghostbusters in 84. People love Ghostbusters. Franchise now technically has 4 films in it. Really did enjoy the last one. I don't know if it'll end up on any classics lists anywhere, but it was satisfying. The second one, I'm actually a huge fan of. I love the second one. I would put the second one on like my personal list of geek culture films of all time, especially now because the perspective of the geek back then who had seen Ghostbusters and then saw Ghostbusters 2 and was a little let down, as somebody who doesn't have any perspective, if you haven't seen the 2 original Ghostbuster films, I go watch them both. But Ghostbusters number 1, everybody agrees, what a real grounded mix of science fiction and humor. The humor is so powerful because the movie's grounded and they're afraid, and constantly the humor is breaking tension. This is one of the reasons why the recent Ghostbusters film, where they gender swapped them all, didn't work as well, because it wasn't grounded. It was slapstick. And slapstick's okay. I don't mind slapstick. I don't mind people trying to make me laugh. But Ghostbusters was special. It's really a special franchise, and it's special because of this groundedness mixed with this anarchist humor of Bill Murray and the grounded paranormal and science knowledge of Dan Aykroyd, who wrote the script, and this is a real passion for him. Ghostbusters is a classic for geeks because it's so well thought out and lovingly made by Aykroyd and company. Yeah, if you haven't seen Ghostbusters, you need to. Okay, coming in at number 16, we've got one of my personal favorites, Gremlins in 1984. I'm actually an even bigger fan. On my top 10 films of all time, Gremlins 2. I love Gremlins 2, but not everybody agrees. Some people, the smart ones, they know what I'm talking about. If you're out there and you know what I mean, Gremlins 2 is just hysterical. Irreverent humor, the likes of which you just don't know. If you like Deadpool, I think Deadpool has maybe possibly opened people's eyes to the real art of breaking the fourth wall in great ways, and Gremlins 2 breaks the fourth wall in great ways. I know that one's not on the list, but it's one of my favorite movies of all time. But universally beloved by all is Gremlins. And while the special effects makeup for Gizmo and the Gremlins isn't quite as good in the first one as it is in the second one, where they hired Rick Baker to come in to do the special effects, and he improved upon what was already there and made it even better. But Gremlins 1 is where it all begins, and it's just lovely, funny, scary, a little scary, but more really fun. And I just adore that movie. It's got a great, simple set of rules. Yeah, do they make sense? No, but it's just this simple mythology that creates a bit of a world. And I think that we sometimes forget how important simple ideas like this. Don't feed them after midnight. Don't get them wet. Keep them away from bright light, which is pretty universal one sometimes with vampires or whatever, but setting some boundaries and parameters for your monster, giving them some simple abilities and restraints that we can understand. The Gremlins is just such a fun idea to play with, and I'm so sad that they haven't done more with the concept until recently with the animated series. I don't really know if an animated series is what anybody was asking for. I certainly wasn't asking for an animated series, so I'm not really interested in watching it. I would, however, love a sequel to the frickin' second Gremlins movie so badly. Seriously, if you haven't watched Gremlins 2, watch Gremlins 2. If you haven't watched Gremlins, watch Gremlins. Great movies. Okay, moving down the list. We got number 17, the Terminator franchise in 1984. Terminator, and then later, of course, we've got Terminator 2 in 91, and that's number 40 on the list. We'll get there in a second. So, but I'm going to go over both these movies right now. So Terminator, it's interesting. The original casting for Terminator was actually supposed to be, what's his name? Lance Hendrickson, the dude who plays Bishop in the Aliens franchise. He is a guy who would blend into a crowd, I guess you would say. And that was the idea behind the Terminator. It was this robot that was just designed to blend into the crowd. They ended up going for this giant muscle robot, which I think worked better as a bit of science fiction. And Terminator comes in this first film as a bad guy. We've come to recognize him, if you haven't seen the franchise, as a good guy, but he starts out here bad to the bone, and it is wonderful. We've got the introduction of Sarah Connor, and she just fucking is the best, the toughest. But here we have the creation of her, talking about building characters, and so an audience will accept their growth as a badass. She goes through hell in this first movie, and when we see her in the second movie, we get her as this boss bitch that we have come to know Linda Carter as. That is her name, right? Yeah, I think so. So anyway, Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 are a 1-2 punch from James Cameron. You've seen the Avatar films or anything else from him. He's brilliant. Down on this list as well is Aliens, plural. He came in after Ridley established the franchise with Alien, and he did the sequel and continued the greatness of that thing. What would be better than an alien? A lot of them, baby! And maybe a queen? Oh, snap. The introduction of the Alien Queen, so great. The fans cannot agree about how we feel about everything after that. No, I think we generally can agree. None of them are as good as Alien and Aliens, but Alien and Aliens are good enough that they will establish that franchise for forever because it demonstrates what can be done with those characters. And there's some really, if you like Alien and Aliens, there's some amazing comic books that have been turned into graphic novels collections, like miniseries, that have been put out for Alien and Predator and some of these franchises. The Dark Horse had owned some of these things, but Alien versus Predator, Alien versus lots of superheroes, and some of the superhero ones were great. I really enjoyed the hell out of them. For people who want a little bit more from that universe and are willing to read a book, there's some stuff out there you can find. At number 19, we've got The Never-Ending Story. A personal favorite of mine, also a personal childhood nightmare of mine, The Nothing, which is basically the bad guy, and it's this oblivion that's just sucking away this beautiful universe of creativity in The Never-Ending Story. And if something isn't done by our protagonist, who is, well, there's kind of a twofold protagonist. There's a protagonist in the book, and then the reader becomes the protagonist who needs to do something to help with the never-ending story. I don't want to spoil everything, but it's very kind of sort of mystical and magical and fun, and it's just about a boy getting engrossed in reading. It's a beautiful film with great animatronics and colorful characters, all sorts of different races of beings and interesting concepts, and two scariest things in the world, The Nothing and this wolf that is following Atreyu. Oh my God, this wolf. The wolf in this damn movie scared me for so long. He's not a real wolf. He's like an animatronic talking wolf, but he basically just looks like a real wolf. But just to picture it, it's something just unnatural about it, and really, and the voice. Anything like it's visceral. Nowadays, everything's CGI, and a lot of the effects, and we were talking about the effects in The Flash being particularly weak, especially knowing what can be done, having seen the height of special effects that can be done with CGI, and like, say, any of the Star Wars films that George Lucas had produced, or something like Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, or anything that has been done really well. There's plenty of things that have been done well enough that now when you see something that isn't done very well, and a lot of it isn't done very well to me, you just go, oh man, they cheaped out there. That could have been better. Like not enough love was put into that. And just so much love is put into The Never-Ending Story, and it's, just largely all practical effects. It might be all practical effects, and I'm speaking out of turn, but it's certainly mostly practical effects and just beautiful things that human beings are interacting with. And that's what we need in fantasy and science fiction. More of that. More of the creation of worlds and not just these digital masks of things. I know it's easy, Hollywood, but to actually bring something real into the world is so incredible. At number 22, we've got Back to the Future in 1985. I think generally the whole franchise is enjoyable. I remember not being thrilled with the third one. The first two I really liked. But generally speaking, I think all the geeks all around the world can agree Back to the Future, the very first film, is wonderful, brilliant. It's just such a great science fiction movie about a mad scientist and his friend. And ultimately, we've got Rick and Morty because of Back to the Future now. What a great legacy that is on top of everything else. At this point, you probably know from the title, but Michael J. Fox. Oh, gotta love Michael J. Fox. He goes back in time with this time machine made by Christopher Lloyd, and he interacts with his mom and his dad in high school, and it's all very cool. You got to check that one out. Continuing down the list, number 23, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And Pee-wee's Big Adventure is going to make me segue into two others. We're going to do Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Batman 89, and Beetlejuice. These three movies are greats for Tim Burton. Tim Burton can sometimes be a little hit and miss with his story stuff, but visually always really stimulating. These three movies sort of embody some of the best of what he did. Pee-wee's Big Adventure actually has a great cameo from my father, Mr. D. Snider. Shout out to you, Dad. And I didn't put this on the list because I'm biased or anything. All right, so get it straight. And you can catch him shooting a music video at the end of the film. So be on the lookout when you're watching that one. It's a great funny, and one of those also kind of disturbing, scary movies, not afraid to be scary film that I remember so fondly from my childhood. It's really awesome on so many levels, and I just remember being fascinated by Pee Wee Herman and sort of the tone of Pee Wee's Big Adventure, and it definitely made me think. And any movie that'll make you think long and hard, that's a good geeky movie. And that's something that'll let you geek out to it. Beetlejuice, another great one with a supernatural bent. Michael Keaton kicking ass and taking names. This is just such a classic. And I don't know why it's like a geek culture one in particular. I think because it's got this theatrical, supernatural bend to it. There's a lot of practical effects and scariness that's in a world. And I think that's the big thing that we come to in geek culture is we love worlds. And Beetlejuice definitely creates a world. They made an animated series after it that I used to watch all the time when I was a kid. I love that animated series. Okay, continuing on, we've got Batman 89, and that one, I mean, this is the Batman that started it all. Granted, as a Batman fan, I don't think that movie really sells us on Batman. It gives us some of the action and the visuals of Batman. None of the Batman films have really gotten Bruce Wayne and Batman down so well. They've done the villains pretty good, and this one does kick off the villains and the aesthetic of Batman in wonderful ways. And in general, this is a film that has gotten many people into Batman comic books and has led many to learn that Batman is even better than these stupid movies are. But because of that, because of all the people who actually read comic books because of Tim Burton's Batman in 89, I would say it's got to be on the list of the top 50 of all time. And at number 25, we've got Real Genius, starring Val Kilmer in 85. This is about this genius dude who's at an Ivy League school and being used by the government to make weapons. It's a comedy, coming-of-age movie, and it's great. That's all you need to know. Val Kilmer is Val Kilmer, the movie star that we know from any other movie that you might have seen him in, whether it's Mad Mardigan and Willow or as Ice in Top Gun and playing Jim Morrison in The Doors. Like, he became an icon on the back of films like this one, Real Genius, and another movie called Top Secret. This one, though, I really think is the best. Real Genius. Go check it out. Okay, coming in at number 30 is one of my personal favorite films and my favorite book of all time, favorite film of all time. It's 1987's The Princess Bride. The Princess Bride, it's written by William Goldman. He's one of the greatest writers of all time. He's written tons of books on writing. There's tons of books on his screenplays. He's written Oscars. He won an Oscar for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He won an Oscar for adapting All the President's Men with Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford. Great movie. Really great adaptation as well. He's a man who knows how to adapt things, which is what we like to talk about here on the show. He's also responsible for the book Marathon Man and the movie Marathon Man. That was an original based on his original novel. So he was a novelist and a screenwriter, and he wrote a book, The Princess Bride, wrote for his daughters. One asked for a story about a princess, the other one asked for a story about a bride, so he wrote The Princess Bride. And it's so adult. It's not for little kids the way that you would imagine it based on him being asked by his children to do this book. There's so much more than that. The film does a great job adapting it and shorthanding it, but the book, which I've recommended before on the show, is just even deeper and better. And there's actually a new version that has an additional chapter basically dedicated to Andre the Giant's character, Fezzik, and Andre the Giant, because we lost him, unfortunately. And William Goldman had felt that. We lost William Goldman as well. William Goldman had felt the loss, and he added a chapter to the book to basically address the loss spiritually, as a writer. It's really sweet, really wonderful. Highly recommend that. Princess Bride, 1987. At number 32 in 87, we've got The Predator. This is my son Cassidy's favorite movie of all time. My son loves horror movies. I introduced him to monster movies pretty early because I think monster movies are kind of the easiest ones of these horror movies to kind of get around because the subject matter tends not to be so adult. So when I saw that he really liked that kind of stuff, I showed him The Predator, and he was just like, yes, this is amazing. And he loves those movies. He really enjoys, I think, all of them. But The Predator, the first one in particular, is just a favorite for him. I happen to really love Predator 2. That one holds up and is similar in its own ways to the first film. And I did enjoy that one a lot. But Predator number 1 with Arnold Schwarzenegger, some great appearances by Shane Black, who's a screenwriter of the Lethal Weapon franchise and directed and wrote Iron Man 3, and he's a really great writer-director. Shane Black's somebody who's worth digging into some of his filmography. He's written some amazing things over the years that aren't necessarily in the geek culture genre, but he's awesome. Jesse Ventura, and a ton of other people whose names are kind of escaping me at the moment. But it's just a star-studded action cast that is, sets the tone for all other sci-fi action films for all time. We've got Apollo Creed's in the movie. I forgot that damn actor's name. He's on Arrested Development now. I love that guy. Hey, but I can't remember actors' names off the top of my head. I love being able to be like, bah, 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 bah. It'll probably come to me at some point. Anyway, Carl Weathers. I told you it'd come to me. Yeah, I should know all those actors in that movie's name, but I'm forgetting people. Anyway, at number 33, we've got 87's RoboCop. And RoboCop is just such a bombastic comic book sort of concept. This police officer dies and gets brought back as like a human cyborg to go out there and police. And it's really kind of not necessarily actually my favorite movie. It's kind of makes me a little uncomfortable in a lot of ways, but it's pretty universally beloved by the fandom, and I do understand why. So I do recommend RoboCop. Moving into number 34, we've got Joel Schumacher's The Lost Boys. And, for those of you who hate him for Batman and Robin, I understand, but he's made some other great movies, like Tigerland was one with Colin Farrell. It's a great movie. And this movie's another one, The Lost Boys. Stylistically super cool. Everybody's just beautiful. He's really... Talk about handsome vampires. They are, but, they're also scary when the time comes and when they need to be. And Kiefer Sutherland, who plays the lead of the Lost Boys, he's just nice and dark and cool. You might know him from the 24 franchise. Kiefer Sutherland is a star. He's great. This movie's great. And it features the Frog Brothers, who are nerds to their core. Talk about some geek representation in film done right. I know people like to point to that shitty TV show with all the nerds. It was like Big Bang Theory. Fucking hate that show. It's just like a bunch of assholes pretending to be nerds and a bunch of writers pretending to be nerds, just making them reference nerdy things that they've heard of. Hey, remember nerdy thing that I've heard of? This is how nerds behave. Oh my God. and they're just like these nerds are just as petty and shitty as your average superficial person. I don't know any nerds who behave like the characters on those shows. Hate that show. The Frog Brothers, on the other hand, I can relate. I can relate to those guys. At number 36, we've got Robert Zemeckis' Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Partially animated movie. I love partially animated movies. I think it's just such a great novel thing. And Who Framed Roger Rabbit is great. Jessica Rabbit is sexy, and Roger is ridiculous, stupid, but still fun because of his interaction with Eddie Valiant, his foil. And really, that's the strength of the movie, is Bob Hoskins as a foil to Roger Rabbit's manic, crazy humor. And the two of them together really just make magic. And just so many great little Easter eggs. If you're a fan of animation, if you're an animation geek like I am, I'm a Looney Tunes geek, and I love old school animation. And, you know, I'm not as deep into some of these characters like, you know, Betty Boops and things like that as I am the Looney Tunes, but I do love seeing so many of the little references that are here in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And another brilliant performance by Christopher Lloyd, who, if I didn't mention, plays Doc in Back to the Future franchise. This movie just kills. 37, UHF in 1989. UHF. Man, UHF. Weird Al Yankovic made this movie, and it just really has his sensibilities to a T. It's zany. It's really geeky. If you are a normal person, not a geek, watching this, you might not want to watch it. But if you are a geek and you consider yourself a geek, watch it, because it's great. It's really stupid, though. In some fashions, it's stupid, but it's really fun. But this is the thing that makes it like geek. It's like there's an acceptance of brilliant, simple ideas having merit, and there's lots of brilliant, simple, silly ideas on display in this film, and it'll keep you chuckling and sometimes busting out with its just ridiculousness all the way through. This is actually one of my brother Shane's favorite movies of all time. Shout out to my brother Shane. Yo, Shane, if you're listening, love you. UHF, 1989. Great one. At 42, we've got Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country. And just a little bit further down the list, we've got Star Trek: First Contact in 96. The Undiscovered Country is the one that I picked to introduce my kids to the original series of Star Trek actors in the films. The Star Trek, the motion picture, the first one's not so great. Some of the Star Trek films are weak, especially compared to the series. So I'm kind of going in just to give everybody a place to start. And if you like these films, there are more. And The Undiscovered Country is kind of a good place to start. If you're feeling like you are up for the franchise, you maybe start with Wrath of Khan, the second one, and you can get to The Undiscovered Country. Undiscovered Country is really great because it's just got the simple concept of a prison break going on. It's definitely a good look for Spock and Kirk, the original, the OG, Leonard Nimoy, William Shatner, Star Trek captain and second in command. I mean, it really means something. Everything that I love about Star Trek starts here, even though they're not my favorite. A little closer to my favorite is The Next Generation, which I prefer to this, even though I'm a big Deep Space Nine fan. Next Generation, they did a bunch of movies. Their movies also, some of them are really great. Some of them are kind of First Contact is a good place to start. It basically gives an origin for Star Trek that's very satisfying to the things that had been set up in the various series prior to this, and executes it all really well and brings these television characters to life on the big screen like the movie stars that they are. Those are the two that I recommend, one for the original series and one for The Next Generation, to get people into the Star Trek series from before the more recent stuff. I didn't mind the movies. I enjoyed the movies. The casting I thought was really great, but the TV series that have come afterwards, I am not a fan. And the last thing that I'm going to say is there's a bonus movie. Now that we've introduced you to Star Trek, it's time to introduce you to parody film Galaxy Quest. Galaxy Quest is so great. I'm so sad that we didn't get a sequel before Alan Rickman passed away, but time for that is over. Alan Rickman's gone now, and what are you going to do? But maybe we still will get a sequel, and maybe it'll be great. The Galaxy Quest basic concept is a spoof on Star Trek and the actors of the crew of Star Trek getting put into a real space situation. All of a sudden it was real, and they're being asked to handle it like it's real because this alien civilization has caught all the reruns of their show and they think it's real. And it is just one of the funniest movies of all time and a geek culture classic. Continuing down and getting towards the bottom of our list here now, we've got 45, we've got The Crow in 1994. The Crow is directed by, he directed Dark City, Alex Proyas. And Dark City is also a really great one that almost made the list. The Crow is a adaptation of James O'Barr's comic book, graphic novel, whatever. I read that series, and The Crow is a lot better than it is. But the basic concept established in the Crow series by O'Barr is really great and novel. And this is a case of elevating material that was not great from an indie comic and turning it into something that's really, really worth your time. And this is Brandon Lee's last role, son of Bruce Lee, his last role because he got killed tragically shooting this film. This movie is a favorite of mine in the superhero genre and a really great case of adapting something and improving upon the source material, which doesn't happen all the time. At 47, we've got The Fifth Element. Because the last one was Star Trek First Contact. The Fifth Element is just amazing, directed by Luc Besson, starring Bruce Willis and Mia Djokovic. If you've been to a comic convention, you've seen somebody cosplaying as a character from The Fifth Element, usually Lilu, Mia Jovovic's character. This is just science fiction done right. It's great. It's got a mystical bent to it as well. It's really just an entertaining film, beautiful to look at, really fun, and really, pop, just larger than life. And, you kind of just can't take your eyes off of it. And a lot of wonderful practical effects. There's just so many good things to say about The Fifth Element. I really, really highly recommend that one. It's a favorite of my ex-wife, Patty. Shout out to Patty. Number 48, Blade in 1998. Blade is amazing, and Blade 2 I'm including as well. That's technically 2002 we crack, but oh my god, Blade. Stephen Norrington, who went on to destroy the League of Ordinary Gentlemen. I don't know if that was his choice, but there is some weakness in this movie and some of the CG effects and things that happen at the end, but everything else is amazing. This is another fabulous reinvention of a comic book character that was, had a part in the comics, but was not defined as well as he is defined here and elevated here to sort of a Batman level. This movie opened the door for so many superhero film adaptations. You just have to thank the gods for it being made in the first place at a time when things like this weren't necessarily being made. Wesley Snipes is incredible. And then the second film, we get Guillermo del Toro starting to do the stuff that he loves to do. Amazing horror, grotesqueness, and casting great people. And I love the second one's got Ron Perlman in it, a villain role. The villains in the second one are so fun, so cool. I mean, just in general, all the villains in this franchise. Stephen Dorff's a great villain too. It's just, the Blade franchise is great. The third movie's really a bummer, and I don't recommend that one. But 1 and 2 are awesome. Awesome films, and I would recommend them to everyone. Blade 2 in particular is my top 10, is in my top 10. I love Blade 2 for a number of reasons. Okay, we're getting almost done here now. We got our bonus there. We got at number 49, the last one on the list because 50 is Blade 2, is The Iron Giant in 1999, directed by Brad Bird. Brad Bird has since proven himself in many ways. He's director of Ratatouille, Incredibles 2. He directed one of the Mission Impossible films. He is brilliant. Brad Bird, man, give this guy an award. Iron Giant is so moving. There's this wonderful references to Superman. Hogarth, the little child in the animated film, who has the pet robot essentially, he's a Superman fan. He reads comic books and he teaches the robot how to be heroic by teaching him about Superman. And there's this one wonderful moment at the end of the film that brings it all back together and ties it to Superman and makes it just such a pivotal moment. It makes it the film that made me say it ain't so, Superman, when I saw Man of Steel, when Man of Steel breaks Zod's neck at the end of the movie, and the Hogarth in me, the young Superman fan in me, said, no, that's not Superman. Superman doesn't kill. Breaks your heart. All right, guys, that's it. That's the top geek culture classics of all time. And then, of course, this is with a 20-year gap for it to be considered classic. I love you all for listening. You are the coolest geeks alive. And please join me again next time on another fabulous episode of The Coolest Alive. I love you guys. See you next time.
You've been listening to Coolest Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent entertainment recommendations. Thanks for listening.
It's gonna be fucking awesome. Come on, it's gonna be fucking awesome. You know the words. It's gonna be fucking awesome. That's it, see. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Yeah! It's my favorite part. Isn't that heavy? I'll play that. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Coolest alive. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Stay with your tribe. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Revenge of the Geeks. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Week after weeks. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Laughing with you. It's gonna be fucking awesome. And cry sometimes too. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Spelling it out. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Making you shout. I'm a genius. I got lyrics coming out me bum for days. You like that? It's a kazoo solo. I played that too. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Talking some shit. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Living your shit. My voice is fucking awesome. Food in our mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Get in the mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Tell all your friends. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Call right or text. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Raising the bar. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Straight to the stars. It's gonna be fucking awesome. It's starting soon. Straight to the top of the awesome. Passing the moon. It's gonna be fucking awesome. On with the show. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Ready, set, go. It's going to be fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Just wait. You'll see. You'll all see.
You'll all see.
The podcast playground.